Okay. Finally. This one is long overdue. We used to have that back one. I have to. We used to have that when a user was deleted, what happened to the audit trail?
It deleted. It kind of didn't go anywhere.
You lost that user.
Yeah.
So you couldn't identify who it was. All right? No longer. You will see that the user's name exists and it says that it was a deleted user. Okay? That's a huge help if you're going into the audit trail in order to see how something happened, why something happened the way. Oh, you're very. Come up here. You can be on the camera with me. It's a huge advantage in being able to track exactly what happened historically. We're no longer in that hole. And particularly if you're working with a firm that happens to be in a transitional period, this is going to be just a huge time saver. Which goes to the fact that you really do need to make sure that we don't have a user called accounting. And anybody that deals with accounting logs in as accounting. Because we can't track anything. All right. Multiple accounts. Well, we now have some lovely things here, kind of like select all or clear all. If you have ever had to go in and you want to report to have all the accounts except for one, what have you had to do? Ding, 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 ding. Okay? Yeah. Not anymore. We select all of them. We go in and take that one off, and we're good to go. Okay? Huge time saver. But again, I want you to think about this. All of these are really user interfaces. None of these are new features. These are user interfaces. Will they save you some time? Yes, they will. Can they potentially make you some money? Yes, they can. And that's going back to some of your filter work. But we don't have that new feature. Waiting deposit. This one is guaranteed to have people call you. What's that red thing up there? How many deposits did you have waiting? I don't have any deposits waiting. Okay. How much money is in your undeposited funds account? You know? Oh, $658,000. Yeah, okay, we got a problem. Okay? But now on the screen, you're actually going to see what deposits are waiting to be deposited. Okay? For your clients that have things going into undeposited funds, but they don't know what they are, what that is, so they just go into the deposit window and make a deposit. This number is going to be scary. I love this one. This one, it's about time.
Isn't it always been there?
No.
Not for the credit cards?
Not for the credit card.
And why not in QBO don't they have this?
Don't.
All right.
Write that down.
Yes, I am.
So this is long overdue. Is it going to help you? Absolutely. You know, I think everybody in this room understands that, and particularly when we've got manual credit card entries taking place and things get entered in 2 and 3 times. Okay, so huge help. All right, here we go. Easily.
No, not so easily.
There ain't nothing easy about this, people. This is not ready for prime time, and this was probably one of the biggest sellers of why you should upgrade to Desktop 2017, because now you can schedule email reports out of Desktop the way that you've been able to do in QBO for quite a while. Okay? All I'm going to do is run through what the process is. First, it's from a specific workstation, not system-wide. You have to be in single user mode. Of course, we all know how thrilling it is to get into single user mode, because most of the companies you're going to be doing this with have multiple users. So the first thing you got to do is kick everybody out. Then you set up through your send forms preferences. That's where you're going to actually go set it up. You know, preferences, edit preferences down at the bottom, send forms. That's where you're going to set it up. Also in your preferences, you need to make sure that you uncheck keep QuickBooks running. That's under your general preferences. For those of you who are not familiar with this preference, the theory behind this preference is, by default, when you install the software, it is checked. The idea is that when you click on the icon on your desktop, it's going to open up the application quicker. That has more issues with instability in the software than any other single setting in QuickBooks. When I set up a new company, and when I set up a new client's company, one of the very first things I do is I go into preferences and I go through each one. And when I get to general preferences, this comes off. The difference in speed, we're talking maybe 15 to 20 seconds.
Is that per workstation, or does that cover the entire company? All users?
Per workstation. Per workstation. Okay?
Uncheck keep.
You know, I mean, if the system does not have enough to run QuickBooks, we need to talk to our clients about the system, how bogged down it is, what else is running in the background, how much RAM there is. You know, get IT to look at what the workload is of the system. But don't leave this click. But back to the point, this has to be unclicked in order to do scheduling, email scheduling of a report. You also have to be running as the administrator, not the QuickBooks administrator, but the administrator on the application. Two different things. Okay? You have the QuickBooks login as administrator is very different than going down to the icon on the desktop, right-clicking it, and then say run as administrator. That's what I'm talking about, being the administrator. Okay? We still have another whole page to go, people, as to, you know, what we're doing here in order to run them. Okay? You can't practice on a sample file. So you got to be practicing this on a real file. The reports must be password protected. You cannot send them unless they're password protected. QuickBooks company file has to be closed, not the application. Don't close the application. But you know how you go file, close company file? That's what you need. You need to be looking at the screen that says no company file opened and then your list of company files. You need that. okay? QuickBooks cannot be opened on that workstation. Remember, this is by workstation. QuickBooks cannot be opened to a different company file. So you can't schedule this for one company and say, oh, I'll just come over here and do this other work in another company, because your reports aren't going to run. If the computer, this is the computer where the scheduled report was created, remember, it's created by workstation, is not running, the reports will run when the computer is turned on. I've seen this. Somebody goes through the whole thing, sets it up. They've got their cheat sheet on what has to be done. They're going to send these out to their boss. They're going to go out, so they're on the boss's desk at 7 o'clock the next morning. Great. What's the last thing that they do? Close their computer down, because they're leaving for the day.
So it doesn't get.
Don't think that the reports have failed to run. The reports are just delayed, because as soon as she turns on her computer the next morning,
I'll go.
then they're going to go.
So this means your computer's completely turned off, or it's just in
Sleep
lock-
mode.
Yeah.
Hibernation counts as turned off.
Okay. Yeah.
How many people are ready to put their clients on this?
Are they gonna put this engineer back on his meds?
You know, this is an amazing feature in QuickBooks Online. It really is. It's very helpful. It's very useful. And it's a very good tool to have. Unfortunately, I'm hoping maybe by 2018, we will have a usable product. I mean, for this. Because right now, literally, I have clients that say, Gale, we really want to use this. I understand that you think it's going to be more of a headache. We're willing to take the risk. Okay. I have a cheat sheet without the little commentary, you know. I'm very good about that. I can be diplomatic when I have, but I have a cheat sheet for them. And I give it to them. And very honestly, I give it to them on company letterhead. At the bottom, I say, you know, please email me at you know, if your reports fail to run, or if you have any questions. I mean, I use it as a marketing tool. I really do, because I know what's going to happen. So, you know, I am much more straightforward with you all to say, I don't think that this is a good thing to be doing with your clients. But if I have clients that are insisting that they really want to try it, then I'm going to use it to my advantage. And I'm going to give them that cheat sheet, and I'm going to say, this is what you need to do, and do the steps in order that it needs to be done. And then the very last step is, call me when you got questions. Okay? It's I truly do believe, because the feedback has not been positive, and particularly when the feedback from the QuickBooks Online has been so positive, I truly do believe that this is something that will be worked on. But again, we've got totally different databases. Is it going to be possible within the database structure of desktop? Is it going to be possible to have the functionality that we have in QuickBooks Online without having all these steps? I don't know. I can't answer that question. Okay, before I get into enterprise solutions, Any questions relative to Pro and Premier?
When my client signed up for 2015, they had an option of doing either signing up for the program or doing a reoccurring yearly thing.
Yes.
Is that going to happen next time they want to buy another desktop product?
Correct. They have. So, and that's what QuickBooks Plus.
Okay.
Okay. That's what QuickBooks Plus. And what that is that they are buying into literally a subscription base for a desktop. So they are committing to buying the new version of QuickBooks every single year. And you can buy QuickBooks Plus with payroll or without payroll. I'm not an advocate of Plus. I'm not an advocate of Plus strictly because I want to know what new features are before I want my clients to go out and spend full retail price for QuickBooks. Does anybody know what retail price is on QuickBooks Desktop?
No.
Of course you do.
Well, $235 or something.
It's $299.
$235.
And 90 cents, yeah.
Plus payroll though is.
And the thing is that, I mean, there's a sale that goes off at midnight tonight where you can buy it for $165. I don't want to,
And the subscription is how
Pro.
much a month?
that's
Yeah,
Pro.
sorry.
Premier
Yeah,
is $200 off.
Yes, sorry.
So it's $499 to $299. But the point being is, even if my client wants to buy a new copy every year, I'm not going to put them on a subscription, which is going to charge them full retail price.
Right.
I'm going to put the trigger in my calendar that says order desktop 4. Da, 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 da. And there are historically sales that come around every year at the same time. Okay? President's Day, every year. Of course, they won't do it next year, but they've done it for the last 7. Okay? They do it. They have a President's Day sale. And Pro and Premier go on sale for significant discounts. And I mean, you're talking $200 off of a single user license for Premier, not Accountant's Edition, Premier, but contractors and, you know, wholesale, manufacturing, all that sort of stuff. If you're buying a 2-user license, it's like $400 off. If you're buying a 3-user license, it's $600 off. That's a lot of savings. And if you can't find that kind of price, Amazon's not going to have that kind of pricing, I can tell you right now. What you need to do is make sure that you hook up with a reseller. Yes, I'm a reseller, but that's not a sales pitch for myself. But what it really is that these are out there. You want to endear yourself to your clients? Oh my gosh, get on one of the resellers' lists so that we contact you as soon as that sale goes out and says, okay, this is the pricing this year for these sales. Now, you don't have 2 weeks to decide. Intuit announces a sale on a Thursday. The sale's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I mean, it's a 3-day sale. So you have to be ready, or your client has to be ready. But that's why I would never put somebody on Plus, because I know I can save them money. You want to endear yourself to your client? I don't care if you're the bookkeeper or the accountant or the CPA or the business advisor, save them $200 or $400 or $600. And you will very definitely endear yourself to them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do they only go on sale once a year?
No, they go on sale. They're called flash sales. It's 3 times a year that they go on sale. President's Day is always one that you can count on. Except for next year.
Okay, what are the other times usually that they've been?
So the other times that they've actually been is, and I want you to think about this relative to QuickBooks, okay? So think about it relative to QuickBooks. I mean, take yourself out of your shoes and put them there. QuickBooks comes out with the new version in August. So in other words, 2018 will come out in August. All right? So they're not going to do any kind of and then they're going to do a flash sale. They do another flash sale at President's Day, and they do another flash sale June, July, and that really has to do with, guess when the end of Intuit's fiscal year is? July.
Oh,
July 31st. So we do another big sale to clear out the inventory. Absolutely, because we're coming out with the new one in August. So those are, you know, generally speaking, President's Day is just easy because it's right around President's Day. June, end of June, beginning of July is not as pinpointed. I mean, it's not like a 4th of July sale. They don't do it that way. And the same thing's true with the November sale. But there are 3 flashpoint sales every year. Okay. Any other questions? Pro and Premier? Yes. It ends tonight. It ends tonight.
It's the President's Sale.
Yep, that's the President's Day. It ends tonight.
Is anybody able to watch the webcast, or do you?
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So what's new in Enterprise Solutions 2017? Well, first of all, we know that everything that I showed you for Pro and Premier also happened in 2017 Enterprise Solutions. So we're not going to go through them all again, but they all are also available in Enterprise Solutions 2017. Okay? So this is unique to 2000 Enterprise Solutions. No, nothing. All they did, and all is, we're back there to security and reliability. That's 100% of what's new in Enterprise Solutions is exactly what was new in Pro and Premier. Okay? Stability, security, and stability being reliability. I'm using those two interchangeably. That is what's new in Enterprise Solutions. 2017 Enterprise Solutions is a more stable product. Particularly if you are interfacing with any third-party software. Now, I'm not talking about T-sheets where that's an easy overlay, okay? But I'm talking about if you have inventory software where you have massive amounts of data coming in, all right? And I don't care, you know, pick a Fishbowl, pick an Activate, pick, I mean, any one of them, okay? But you have large quantities, you know, have a third-party field service that's putting a lot of information into QuickBooks. There is a lot more stability in Enterprise Solutions than there was in earlier versions. So 2017, I do encourage Enterprise Solutions clients to move to 2017. Okay, absolutely, I make that recommendation. And I make that recommendation for stability and that frustration factor, which a lot of people get. So I guess you don't have any questions about Enterprise Solutions. Okay, all right. the end of what's new in 2017. Any questions?
You want to give us a quick break before you get into the advanced?
I will give you a quick break before we get into the advanced. The restrooms go out to the lobby, go all the way out to the lobby. The elevators are going to be on your right. There's a little hall just past that. And that's
Before you excuse them, there was a question that I've heard. So there's some people in the room that are not necessarily advanced. Can you just quickly explain the difference between Pro, Premier, and Enterprise? Just like in general terms.
Pro and Premier. Pro, so we can do it a variety of different ways. It has to do with features and has to do with functionality. Okay, big 30,000 foot overview. Pro is the most basic. You can have up to 3 users on Pro. Premier has more features and has industry specific applications. What that usually means is the standard reports within the application are more targeted for a particular industry, like construction, like wholesaling and manufacturing, like professional services. Pro and Premier are written on one platform. In other words, one database. Enterprise Solutions is written on a second database. Enterprise Solutions is a subscription-based desktop version of QuickBooks. So you are buying it by the year on a subscription base. You can pay for that subscription on a monthly basis. You can pay for it on an annual basis. That's another one. Make sure you get to a reseller to buy your enterprise solutions through for your client, because you can save 20% on the life of the subscription. So make sure that you do that. Enterprise Solutions also has everything that Pro and Premier has, including the industry-specific versions of it. One of the big differences, there's many differences, but that most people like is the permissions that you get available to you in Enterprise Solutions. You not only have permissions, you have what are called roles. So you can have up to 30 different users in Enterprise Solutions. You pay for the subscription based on the number of users. And then a user can have, it's 128 different options of permissions. And those permissions can be as granular as they can see, but they can't change. Or they can change this, but they can't delete it. Or they can only print it out. And you can get that down to the bank level. So in other words, if you want to give somebody the ability to see everything in your file except for the payroll banking account, you can do that. Okay, so the permissionings, there are a lot of small businesses that don't need, only may have 4 users. It's like, oh, I don't need enterprise. The next question is, how granular do you want your permissions to be? Because in Pro and Premier, we've got those very wide sweeping 4 categories, and it's almost an all or nothing on some of those permissioning categories. In Enterprise Solutions, you really can get very granular on what they can do and what they can't do. Enterprise Solutions also has what I refer to as the owner's copy. They can see everything. Can't do anything but look. Okay? I mean, you could give them the ability to print reports, but so really, if I've got, if I'm working, as I told you, I work with legal firms, and I quite often have senior partners that are not particularly tech savvy, but they want access to everything. Not a problem. You can have access to everything. You can see absolutely everything. You can print absolutely everything. Oh, sorry, you can't change anything.
No touchy.
Yeah, no touchy. So that's a really, that's kind of a high level difference between them. I've got both of them in my system if anybody wants to actually look. if you have a company or if you are looking at going from Pro or Premier to Enterprise, it's going to look and feel like Pro and Premier. Okay, you're not learning. This is not like going from desktop to QBO. It's not a whole different interface. The interface is the same. You have a couple more features that are available. For instance, you have, just like we have a vendor center, a customer center, you know, and an employee center. Well, we have an inventory center. It looks very similar to the whole center type thing. So there is definitely more functionality available to you. Yes.
Could you describe what a user is? Is that a login, or is that so many users on at a time?
No, it's not. It's not sequential. What it is Intuit uses what's referred to as named user. So if you have your name as a user, whether you are logged in or not, you are a user. Okay? So if you have an application that you have bought 3 users for, there should only be 3 names there, other than an accountant, which does not count. Okay, and that's another reason why it's really important for you, if you are the accountant on your client's books, that you are signed up as the accountant, because it doesn't count towards their user. But there should only be 3 names if you have a 3-user license, whether that's Pro, Premier, or Enterprise Solutions. There should only be 3 names there. And a lot of companies are in violation because they have 5, 6, 7 names, but they only do 3 at a time. And what I will say, and you need to be aware of this, and that is try to open up QuickBooks. And I mean, I'll do this as soon as everybody's had their break. Try to open up QuickBooks when you're not connected to the internet, and you get an error message that says you're not connected to the internet. Now, trust me, they do crack down on some businesses that are playing this shenanigans, because in essence, you're in violation of the contract that you said I agreed to. You know, the one that you can't just check the box. You have to scroll to the bottom in order to check the box. Have you figured that one out? Just scroll to the
Couldn't
bottom.
they sign in as the same user?
Well, but then we're in that category when we talked about the audit trail. If everybody in the
Same
accounting
name.
department signs in as the, accounting or, whatever, now you have no audit trail. Is it possible? Yes, it is.
So it doesn't matter how many computers you have it on, as long as you only have 3 different people, whoever they are, using
Legally, I can have, I can actually have the application installed on multiple computers. I can have it on a laptop. I can have it on a desktop. That's not a concern.
Okay.
My login can only be used by me. So the
user
idea
really is a login.
That's exactly right. It really is. It's called a named user.
Okay. So if
Okay.
I have QBOA coming in on top of that, doesn't hurt anything until it's happening.
Correct. As long as you're signed up as the accountant on your client's desktops, you are not counting as one of their users.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes, you are not counting as one of their users. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I see yellow-eyed, cross legs.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because I probably field no less than 2 calls a week from somebody telling me that QuickBooks Desktop, they just heard. They read it on Twitter. They heard it on Facebook. Somebody said that desktop is going away. Now, very honestly, I don't overreact. I do ask them if they are on a Mac version, because I think that for somebody who has been on a Mac and tries to get 2017, that it can be rather unsettling, and you can walk away with the idea that it's going away. But I want to spend like literally 5 minutes going through some slides. These slides actually come from a presentation that I went to from Intuit. I selectively picked out some slides that I felt really were something that you need to know, because you can confidently say to your clients, QuickBooks Desktop is not going anywhere, okay? It was part of their Investors Day. Oh yeah, well, you know who I am. This is one of the charts that they actually shared. And this is all about QuickBooks Online. And this is the growth that's actually taken place between 2014 and 2016 for QuickBooks Online. And that is pretty impressive growth. Okay? This is QuickBooks Online with attachments. And when I say attachments, this is Intuit's investment days. These are Intuit's attachments. Payroll and payments. That's their merchant services. So if you ever wonder why there's such a push for your clients with QuickBooks Payroll and QuickBooks Merchant Services, I think that graph tells the story rather well. Because the growth of the product is much more significant when it's more complete. They're doing this because, from their perspective, the future has to be cloud-based, that anywhere access, greater control of applications, easier support. We talked about that. PC, 5 different operating systems, you know, XP, what version are you on? All that sort of thing. QuickBooks Online, you call in. Doesn't really matter what your operating system is, because the software is not installed on your machine. You know, they know what version you're on. It's the version that they released, okay? So for them, it's makes a whole lot more sense. Mobility, who in this room does not have a smartphone on them? Okay. But you do have a laptop. Yes. Because I've seen it. Okay, so the idea of mobility. And here's the other thing. What's next? We don't know. I mean, if somebody held my feet to the fire and said, tell me what's going to be in the marketplace in 3 years, I'd be losing my feet. I have no idea. I have no idea at all. But you have to be prepared for it and look at where it has gone. I mean, you know, 5 years ago, if somebody told you, not in Silicon Valley, said, you know, you're going to be wearing a computer on your wrist, would you really believe them? Data, please, please, please. And I really, really caution you with this. Understand that data, we live in the world of big data. We all like to know, how do I compare? You know, all those sort of things. Well, the only way they can do that is if they collect data on you. The question is always, is it being collected in the aggregate? You know, are they stripping out any identifiers? Intuit does. Not all software companies do, and you need to be consciously aware of that, okay? Particularly if you work in certain industries. In the legal industry, I am very much limited on what applications I can use or I can recommend to my clients. And that has to do with their, what are called RPC codes, okay? You know, these are their ethical codes that they have to live by. We all know about HIPAA in the medical community. Please be aware that you may have clients that have to comply with certain licensing agencies. You need to understand what those rules are. The other thing is contract workers. You know, that's becoming very, very, very commonplace. One person works for a couple different companies and they're doing it remotely. You know, you have virtual offices, all sorts of things. So that's why we're going to the cloud. However, look at that chart. This was the QuickBooks Online chart I showed you. This is QuickBooks Desktop by itself. This is QuickBooks Desktop with attachments. This is how much revenue it generates.
Wow.
Do you think the desktop's going to be pulled off the marketplace?
No. But they want to, don't they want to push them?
Now let me qualify a couple different things in this chart. And again, we could literally spend an hour talking about what was said, and I don't want to spend an hour doing that because I want to move on to more important stuff. But what I want you to realize is, yes, QuickBooks Online is growing. Yes, there's a lot of functionality. QuickBooks Online will never have all of the functionality that QuickBooks Desktop. There are two totally different philosophies going on here. Desktop started and was the we do everything. They didn't even open their code up so that things could interface with it. QuickBooks Online always started with, we're going back to the basics. We are the financial center. We're opening up our API so that everybody can write programs that will interface with us and will bring to, you know, QuickBooks Online what their strengths are. So philosophically, these were totally different applications. All right. This has always been interesting, and this is somewhat of an anomaly, is that in 2005, desktop decreased. But it went back up in 2006. When you dig a little bit deeper, you can also see that in 2016, there were people that were moving back off of online back to desktop because of the functionality. All right? But the growth, a lot of the growth here is enterprise solutions. It is not Pro and Premier. Pro and Premier are stagnant. They're not growing. Enterprise Solutions is growing. Enterprise Solutions is growing because they provide a product in the marketplace that very few other software companies are interested in targeting. Okay? How many times has Microsoft come out with Microsoft Accounting? Oh, it's here, fuck, on hit, and back up. Okay? It's an interesting little target. Okay? Your Sage products like to go upstream. Your Dynamic products like to go upstream. This is that, you know, let's work in that, you know, $5 to $20 million business. That's very different. There's not a lot of people that are playing in that space. Xero is not playing in that space. Okay? So, you know, a lot of this has to do with enterprise solutions. So there will still be, but Pro and Premier are not the growth drivers. Again, look at what happens as far as the income generation when you have attachments. Okay? And this basically just talks like, you know, what I did. It's the QuickBooks desktop ecosystem. And when they refer to the ecosystem in desktop, they're referring to that payroll and that payments. And that's what's really driving them. Again, you can sit here and you can actually look at this. This is back here in 2014. Notice this gray area, which is your desktop. It's not really growing. It is losing. This went from 63% in 2014 to 40% projected in 2019. It's not shrinking. QuickBooks Online is growing, which means that we're getting the smaller people that were in Excel, you know, paper and pencil, that sort of thing. They're buying into QuickBooks Online because of the ease of use. A lot of that ease of use, people, are the things that are going to directly affect you. That zero entry data. Connect your bank, automatically feeds in. Okay? So, you know, some of it is a mindset for us as well. You want to stay in desktop? You want to grow your practice in desktop? My recommendation would be you learn enterprise solutions. Know what the functionality is. Know what differentiates it. I cannot tell you how many clients I have worked with over the years whose accountant, and I'm talking tax accountant now, we do no tax work other than payroll taxes, but that doesn't count. We do no federal tax work. And I'm ready to send a portable copy to a tax accountant, and they're like, oh, well, we don't have enterprise solutions. Just send me the reports.
Yeah.
You want to differentiate yourself if you're doing federal taxes? Understand enterprise solutions. That's huge. Because here I'm sitting with a company that's a $10 million company, and they go, oh, my tax accountant doesn't have a copy of enterprise solutions. And I'm like, really? And they're going to do your taxes? Yeah, they said just send them a P&L. Okay. Now, they also want to charge $1,500 to do taxes because they're going to key everything in manually to understand what, okay, well, whatever. All right. So we can actually come in here and you can actually look at, you know, what's happening from a revenue perspective. The growth at Intuit is all about their online products. But the bread and butter is still in desktop. Okay. So what I'm going to say is, what are the differentiators for you? You want to stay in desktop, or I know many of you do, and the topic of this hour was advanced topics in desktop. So that's where I'm staying. And I noticed that she walked out of the room. She didn't want to hear about desktop.
She did.
Oh, she did. I never take offense. You know, what sets you apart from your competitors? What is your differentiator? And very honestly, it can be something as simple as you understand enterprise solutions. You understand, and that just what Beth was asking me earlier, can you just give me, you know, kind of what's the overview? I cannot tell you over the years how many times permissions in enterprise solutions has been huge in somebody going from a pro to an enterprise solutions. The cost differential was totally irrelevant. It's the fact that they could block somebody out of a bank account. It was the fact that they could give the partners or the investors the ability to see everything and not touch anything. It's understanding those nuances that are the difference between a pro, a premier, and an enterprise solution. Okay? Now, what I'm going to spend the next bit of time on, and this is actually going to feed into some of what Shelly's going to talk to you about. And that is, we've got zero data entry. You've heard it talked about, and I mean, it's no longer on our doorstep, it's in our lives. I mean, we have clients that have hooked up their bank accounts to their QuickBooks files, whether it's desktop or QuickBooks Online. And, you know, they're sort of like, oh, well, you don't have to do that. We can do that now. And here's my point. One of the biggest pains that people have with QuickBooks is, I pay you X number of dollars, which they always feel is overpaying you. to put all this stuff in there, and I don't care about that. I don't care about that. I'm doing that for the IRS. I'm doing that for the state. It doesn't make any difference to me. If you have clients that are saying that to you, that's a huge opportunity that you have that you are not taking advantage of. And that is the ability to take the information that's in QuickBooks and generate reports that are meaningful to them, not to you, that are meaningful to them. What's important to them? What do they want to hear? Now, there are reports that need to be done, liquidity reports and things like that, if they're going to go to the bank to get a line of credit, or if the bank reaches out to them and say, I need your financials in order to renew your line of credit. Those are invaluable, and I'm not suggesting that they're not. But if you want to endear yourself to your clients, figure out for them and their business what are, and I'm going to say 3 or 4, you can do 2 or 3 reports that are important to them. Now, what you're actually going to do is you're going to have to spend an hour or 2 of your time. Guaranteed, you're going to have to do that. But if you are working in the same or similar industries, you generate the report and then you copy that report from this QuickBooks file to this QuickBooks file. Now, you can't create it in Pro and Premier and copy it into Enterprise Solutions, okay? But the idea is you spend the time and you develop the report once, and then you copy it so that you can install it on another company's computer, okay? So, if you have targeted your practice to deal with a particular industry, you will find that this is extremely valuable and takes even less of your time. We literally sell a monthly report package to our clients. The original, we actually have 5 or 6 different report packages, depending upon the size of the firm, legal firm that we're working with. Trust me, it takes me maybe 15 minutes every month to run that company's reports. And I package them up. And we charge them $3.95 every month. And I never, ever hear it's not worth it. Oh my gosh. Well, you know, my gut told me that, but it's nice to see it confirmed. Okay, so let's look at this. I'm just going to go right into. Yep, he's my little money maker. I am going to stay in. I'm going to stay in Premier. I'm not going to go into Enterprise Solutions. Please realize, whatever.
Say okay.
Oh, really? Already got this one?
Who's Pooch?
Who's Pooch? It's a wolf.
Oh,
I met on a trail.
Oh, you did?
I had a telephoto lens, trust me. I was not that close to the guy, trust me.
I have a friend that has one.
Okay, so what I want to do is I want to walk you through, and I don't have time to actually generate a report. I want to walk you through what this looks like and how we would actually do it. First thing I'm going to say is the first place you need to be when you are customizing reports is the place that nobody wants to start. Edit, Preferences, Reports. Okay? That's where I want you to start. And then I want you to go to Company Preferences. Now, how many of you actually go into reports, generate a report, and the very first thing that you're doing is you're going into your headers and your footers, and you're taking things off? I don't want the time stamp on there. I don't want the page numbers on there. I don't want this on there. You're going in and you're doing all that cleanup. Okay? Well, you need to be here because you actually can come in and you can set your defaults and you can set that up so that those things never show up on your reports. Obviously, accrual cash, I don't need to get into. Aging reports, this is particularly of interest based on what industry you're working in. Is it based on your due date or age based on the transaction date? If you have pay upon receipt or you work with clients that have pay upon receipt, do it as of the age of the transaction date. You send out the invoice because most of you have, not most of you, I shouldn't say that, sorry, I'm jumping to conclusions, okay? But there's a difference between your terms, which is due upon receipt, and your due date. That's not one and the same. Those are two different fields. This is defaulting to the due date. If you have due upon receipt, those are the terms. You don't even show a due date on your invoice. What is your due date default set to? 30 days if you haven't reset it, because that's the default when you install the software. Oh. Do you see where I'm going with this? There's a lot of default things that are set up in QuickBooks that if you don't know it, it's a sure bet your client doesn't know it. And yet they're pulling reports that are not giving them good information. Okay, this right here. I love this. This is my favorite report feature. Okay? We can have name, description, or name and description. This is for items. We can also have accounts, name, description only, or name and description. Now think about this. How many of your businesses have items that make more sense to them than accounts? They spend a lot of time setting up those items. Those items make sense to them. Really? Are you running your reports by items? Or are you running them by accounts? Because my guess is this is the way your report preferences are set up. Those were all the defaults. This is a sample file. So when we come over here to reports and it says show name only, that's automobile, payroll, that's all the names of the accounts that you have in there. But we can, and let me come in to, of course I have to cancel out of that. Come here. I'm going to come here. I'm going to create a new account, and I'm going to say an expense account. How many of you fill in this description?
Not very often.
Yeah, we usually don't use it because we know what the accounts mean in the chart of account. But do our clients know what that is? So if you come in here, and that is our account, okay? Which one's going to make more sense to them? That says truck cost. Well, it doesn't. That's what I thought it said. Okay. But the point is that what makes sense to them? What makes sense to them? Automobile expense? Because if you've got a contractor, what's the first thing that they're going to say? Well, we don't have an automobile. We got trucks.
We all know what you mean.
Okay. See? So what makes sense to them? What do they want to see on their reports? They want to see trucks. Okay? It's not a big deal to us. It's a big deal to them. You know, we have professional development. Hey, makes sense to us. Ask them, do you know what professional development means? No, they don't. Now, the beauty of this is if you've used this field, you can run your reports both ways. So if you have to run a report that you're going to hand off to somebody else, if it's a financial institution, whether it's a CPA that's doing the tax work, run the reports by account name. You want to give your client a management report that they understand? Run it by description. Give them what they want. You want to run a report where you're just talking about overhead? Don't tell them overhead. Now, contractors understand overhead, but very honestly, there's a lot of industries that don't understand that term overhead. Give them a report using descriptions that make sense to them. And then after you've generated the report, put it up here on the icon bar. Set it up there on the icon bar. Now, do we all know how to put things on the icon bar? I won't ask that question, I'll just show you. Sorry, I shouldn't have asked that question. Okay, so as we all know, that icon bar is Intuit's opportunity to sell you something else. That's what it is. All right? So I went to view. I came down to customize icon bar. Once I'm in there, I just have a heyday. I just get rid of them. And very honestly, I usually get rid of all of them and add them back as I'm explaining what they do.
Yeah. It's a good idea.
I am explaining this is what it's going to show you. The other thing is, this is a cute little name that Intuit gave you. Income tracker. Does your client know what an income tracker is? Okay. So we're going to come down here, and guess what? I'm going to come here, and I'm going to rename it.
How much you made?
You have to tell us, we can't read.
How much you made?
Okay, thank you. Maybe, can you guys read that? No, it's just me.
The point is, thank you, I'm assuming that you can see it. The point is that don't use the terms that Intuit defaulted to or that you understand. Make sure that your client understands. How many of us in this room like to have to say, I don't know what you're talking about. Could you please explain to me? And you know what? Usually when you do say that, people are surprised. They're like, wow, I'm so glad you said something. Your client's the same way. They run a company. They're sitting there with you. How hard is it for them to say, I have no idea what you're talking about? It's hard. I don't care how personable and friendly you all are. I don't care how long your relationship has been. It's hard. Think about it from a different perspective. You see the same people every year at a conference, and you never can remember their name. How many times do you go up and go, you know I've known you for 5 years. I still can't remember your name. You're not going to do that. You're going to turn around and wait till somebody calls them by name. You're going to ask somebody else, what's the name of that woman over there? I can't remember. The point is that don't put yourself in a position of making your client feel uncomfortable. You've got the tools in QuickBooks to make them feel more comfortable with this information. Nobody is looking at their screen other than themselves and you. Now the reports, you can still have the very traditional account name, account number report. Or you can have the report that uses the terminology that makes sense to them so that they can start using their numbers, so that they will start looking at the numbers that you want them to look at. All right? Now, and just for the record, I took Latin instead of typing. But I guess that was a little bit self-explanatory, wasn't it? Okay, so I'm just going to pull up a report here. And I'm just going to pull up a standard profit and loss. And so here comes my profit and loss. Okay. And a couple different things I want to point out right here where it says show applied filters. There are none. Trust me, there are filters on this report. You have a profit and loss. All right. But it's not showing up. This is where, what are the defaults that are embedded in the report? They're not showing up. Those are Intuit's defaults. They're not going to be showing up. If I went in and made a change, that would show up there. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and after bringing up a report, so I've got a report, whether it's a report that I customized, made, whether it's a report that I put special filters on, whatever it is. I want to put it on this icon bar for my client to be able to access it. Can I do that? Sure I can. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go to View. I'm going to come down and it says Add Profit and Loss to Icon Bar. I click yes. It brings up that window that says, okay, what do I want to label it? That's that same screen we were just on. Do I want to call it Profit and Loss? Probably not. Income statement. That's usually what people do. Income and expenses. What makes sense to your client? Ask them. Ask them. As soon as I say okay, it now pops in there. It's now there for them to pull whenever they want to pull. 2 things of caution. Number 1, always make sure that you are using a date range. Don't force your date range. How many times have you been in your custom reports in your QuickBooks file and there are 50, 60, 70 different custom reports there because they memorized the report? And they memorized it because they manually came in and put a date range on it. Other than that, it's a standard report. You want to make sure that you're using the explanation for a date range. So if you want it to be this month, last month, this week, last week, make sure you use this, because if you use this before you put it up here, it's always going to be this month. So 3 months from now, it's still going to be this month. If you hard code it in, it's always going to stay whatever you hard coded in. Okay? Make sense? Yes.
So if you put that on the icon bar month to date, and you want to run the report, just this month.
You can always bring the report up and then change it here.
Gotcha.
But what I'm saying is, this is one of the tools that you are going to give your clients. Okay, so you want to make sure that you've got it set up. I've even been known to do income month to date, income year to date. The only thing different between those two reports is the date range. I don't want them to have to think about changing anything. This is not their area of expertise. I just want them to be able to look at the report and use it.
I always teach them how to change the date though, just in case they want to get outside of it.
So go back and ask how many of them remembered that.
They do.
Do they?
Sure.
You got smarter clients than I do.
Yes, just depends, just.
I got attorney, so we know about
I set it
that.
up the way, you know, the ordinary way, you know, this year to date.
Sure,
whatever,
sure.
By month or whatever, or through last month or, but I said, if you want to get outside of that parameter, this is all you need to do. Which is a lot easier than them and not finding me at the office and having to go into reports and try and do it themselves, not knowing where to start.
Okay, now one of the things that I want to actually talk a little bit about, and that is that let's say,
No, you're
let's say,
you're okay. You have 15 minutes.
oh, good, okay. Oh, really?
Well,
Oh,
10 or
shoot.
15.
Okay. One of the things that I'm going to say is every time I do a custom report for a client, and I'm not talking about a profit and loss report, but a report where I use the descriptions instead of the account names, you know, I actually took the time to do a custom report for them. I also want to make sure that on that template, that if they print that report out for their purposes or to share with anybody, I've branded that report. I have gone into custom reports, okay, and I've come over, I've come over here. Now this is the one that I was talking about. This is the screen where I said we all come in and the first thing we do is we take off all this stuff. Well, a lot of us do. Some of us don't, a lot of us do. But do you see where it says extra footer line? I would actually go right in there and would say prepared by 4700 group. When they print that report out, our name is on it. Can they come in and wipe it out? Yes, they can.
They don't know.
That's right. I want to remind them who did the report for them. Okay?
It's a good idea.
But it's a way of, now, I don't do that on a standard profit and loss because it's not my report. But if I went in and modified a report or created a report from scratch, you better believe I do. You better believe I do. Because that's another one of those reminders. It's a report that makes sense to you. I want them to remember who did that for them.
But at the same time, aren't you a little nervous about them doing something with the numbers and then have your name at the bottom before you look at it? I'm not validating their numbers by that. I'm giving them a report. But yeah, I mean, then I very honestly, I would be scared of them ever running a report on their own. I mean,
It's their numbers.
that's right. So there are all sorts of ways that you can take reporting and get them away from the default of what Intuit provides and have it be a valuable resource that you are providing. One of the differentiators, see if she's listening. One of the different, one of the distinctions between QuickBooks Online and Desktop right now, and I can only speak of right now, is that the power of reporting still goes to Desktop. Okay? Take advantage of that. If you want your practice to focus on desktop, what are your differentiators? What can you provide your client that's different from other similar people doing similar work than you? How are you differentiating yourself? Reporting is that tool, and I'll tell you, using descriptions instead of account names so that your clients understand in their terms what it is going to be huge.
10 minutes left. Do you want to do Q&A?
Sure. I'm doing Q&A. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. What seems to me to be the biggest challenge with supporting desktop now is how long those files have been in use for like a really, really long time. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit to what we should be doing about that.
Okay, so
That's all.
Yes, that's a good one. I have to follow.
In like 2 seconds.
okay, so I'm assuming that you're doing all the maintenance work that needs to be done on the file on a regular basis.
Right.
And I really
What?
think you should have a list of the maintenance that Intuit doesn't give. You go over them, but I think it would be really nice, especially for new users, to have that little, the form.
Check
Maybe
this,
is it on
check
your
that.
site?
We did this.
Did you
I
do
gave you that years ago.
Yeah,
It is on your
we
site,
have it
okay.
on the meetup site. Yeah.
Maybe we should bring
Yeah.
it more forward.
Yeah, and there's some good blog posts on it too. But yeah,
I think it's
the one that
important
I
for
have has a
people
lot
to
of
know.
other stuff on it too, and just a list would probably
Yeah,
be it.
yeah.
You just like rattle them off every
Okay.
year.
You're validating every year. Okay, so your clients, so your clients, actually, man, I have a nightmare story to tell about this one. I could have made a lot of money if I was not an ethical person. When your clients do a backup, Chris, you might want to just plug your ears on this. When the IT people tell them that they don't have to do a QuickBooks backup because they're backing up the computer,
All the time.
and
They all
if
do.
you have any clients that are buying into that, that is 100% wrong. That is not only wrong, you are causing a nightmare. And this is where I said I could have made a lot of money if I was unethical. Because QuickBooks needs to go through that process. This is a process. Backing up, creating a copy, it's a process. QuickBooks needs to go through that. It needs to go through it regularly. Not once a year. It needs to go through it regularly. How regularly?
Every week, every day.
How big's the file? If your client's only in there once a week, sure, you could do it once a month. If your clients are in there every day, once a week at the absolute minimum. They need to back it up. The file needs to go through that process. It needs to shut down. Remember, this is a database. There's all sorts of things behind it that are open. All that stuff needs to close down. The difference between a backup and a copy is what's happening in the back side. So, first thing you need to do, don't listen to the IT person, and make sure that your clients are backing up their files regularly. Back it up to a thumb drive, back it up wherever. You want to make sure that if you're doing monthly services or quarterly services for your client, you restore one of those backups and make sure that the backup's actually taking place. All right? That it is a usable file. Number two, you need to do what is called a portable round trip. Okay? You're going to come to create a copy. Nobody can see this, so there's no point in me going in there and showing you. So you go to create copy. You create a portable copy. It's going to take some time. You make the portable copy. You go to You close the company file that you just made the portable copy of. You go into your file folder. At the end of the name of that file that you just closed, and you can see the time date stamp so you know that that was the file that you were in, put a hyphen and then put the date, because what you're saying is you're changing the name of that file. Then you go back into QuickBooks and you restore a copy of the file, the portable copy you're going to restore. When you restore that and you open that file back up, from a database perspective, it is a lot cleaner. Let me give you a real quick analogy. Gentlemen, I hope you enjoy cooking. In your kitchen, you open and close your kitchen drawers all the time. One time you walk up to a drawer and you go to open it and it's stuck. And it's like, what is wrong with that door? And what do? You take the palm of your hand and you hit it. And then it works great. That's basically what you're doing to a file when you do a portable. All you're doing is you're giving it that making sure that everything lines back up so that the file can operate smoothly, okay? When do you do it? Couple different times. What I would say is I do it on a maintenance plan, but you can also come in, you can also come in, this is your product information screen. That's your Control 1, PF1 if you still have that. You come down here and it's called DB. That stands for Database File Fragments. That number should be less than 10. If it's more than 10, you need to do what I just described. Okay?
QuickBooks will tell you 100, but Gale tells you
10.
Smarter than
10. Trust me, 10.
Sorry.
You need to do that. Yeah. You need to do that. So if your DB database fragments are over 10, you need to do it. The other time that I will do it is if somebody comes in and goes, I don't know what's wrong with my QuickBooks file. It just got really sluggish. I'm really having problems. I'm going to run a report and I have to wait for like 3 minutes for the report to run. I come to this screen, the very first thing I'm looking at is what's the size of the file. If it's reasonable, then I know that I don't have file size issues. What I've got instead is I probably have some database issues where things have not closed down correctly. Depends. Pro and Premier, the recommendation is 150 megabytes. Enterprise Solutions is 1.5 gigabytes. That's another differentiator that you need to know. If you want to stay in desktop, the difference in how big your file can be. Okay? If my file size is okay, then I will do, and if somebody tells me that QuickBooks is just running really, really sluggish, the very first thing I'll do is I'll do that portable round trip. And very frequently that will resolve the issue. Okay? I'm out of time.
Do you want to take one more question or something though? That was just one. So, anybody have a burning question about desktop?
You hoarded the question.
How often? So what I will, now 2 different things. Revision updates, I'm going to tell you right now, I highly recommend you do them. Wait. When you see that one has come out, wait 3 weeks before you install it. Quite frequently, there are security updates that they're actually doing. And so they're really important to do. I'm just never the first one out of the gate to install them. As far as one year version to the next year, I always look at what's being updated. If I see security things are being updated, I'm recommending an update.
One thing, when you're under the reports and processing reports, I don't think people use that enough, and I show my clients and they're thrilled so nice, and you can have a whole group of reports and change the dates and have them all up, and
So-
maybe you guys all use that.
I don't think I
My
use
clients
that.
love that when I bring that in.
So this is process multiple reports. The biggest thing about process multiple reports is you have to take your memorized report window and group your reports together. So maybe you have Monday morning reports, maybe you have marketing reports, do it by department, do it by, board reports. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that you can group them. And remember, a report can be part of multiple different groups, okay? But then on this screen, you can come up here and you can actually change this to be a group. And now you can come in here and change this date range so that you'll get exactly what you want. It's a way to quickly run a lot of reports at one time. And you can either run them to view them on the screen, to just display them, to print them, or to email them. It's not an automatic emailing. This is not an automatic emailing. You can't schedule it. You have to come in here and do it. Okay.
Do you want to show us comments on reports really quick? Because it fits in so well with all the other things. And was it new 2 years ago or last
2
year?
years.
2 years.
2 years ago. How many people use comments?
You guys using the commenting on reports?
Okay, so once again, this is just a standard profit and loss up here. We have customized report. The very next thing we have is comment on report. You can click on comment on report. Now, what I want you to realize is this has now generated another report. Okay, why that's important is because these are stored in another location than the rest of your reports are. All right, so we've got comment on report, and you now have,
Just try to ignore that thing.
yeah, I'm trying to. But I want to come. Okay. I'll see, nothing works on mine. Okay, so, well,
There.
can we see it?
Yeah, comment on something and then we'll be able to see it.
Well, okay, do you see where I'm getting? Let me see if I can come up. Do you see where there's a little box? It's very faint, you can barely see it, but you can actually come up and you can actually get to a box. Once you've got a box there, you would click on the box. You can come down to the bottom of your screen and you can write whatever comment that you want. For instance, if you're doing any kind of financial report, any kind of profit and loss or sales report or anything like that, what you have the ability to do is when you see something, now I clicked a green box that now has the number 1. It correlates to the comment number 1 down here at the bottom, and I can say, why is this so high? Or I see in here that there is an expense over $1,500. This should have been put into a fixed asset account, or whatever you want to say, but you have the ability to comment right on that. Once you do that, you're going to save this. Okay, now it says, do you want to save your comments? And you have the ability to say yes or no. Yes, I do. So, oh, I guess I didn't. Sorry, I didn't put anything. Yeah, I can type real well there. Okay, so I'm going to say save it. Do you want to save your comment? Yes, I do want to save it. And now it's asking me to name this report because I am now saving a report with a comment on it, okay? And it's like all reports, you probably want to make sure that, you know, I'm a big one for dates, so this is profit or loss, and I put a date on it. And I'm going to say, okay, now you successfully saved your comment report. To view it, choose reports, comment reports. And that's where I was saying, this is going to be in a different location. It's not under your memorized reports, it's under your comment reports. Okay, so if, even though you're saving the report as if you were for memorized reports, you're really not. You're saving it under your comment reports. And your comment reports are just right. I mean, they're still under reports. You would still go reports, comment, commented reports. Correct.
At the bottom.
Correct. Okay?
I've never used that.
My employer has 2015 we're working on, and I'm thinking I might like to recommend an upgrade. I haven't figured out what would be the best for the situation, so
I'll be glad to talk to you.
thank you.
Sure, not a problem. Any other questions?
Could you just run that report so it shows where the comment shows up for those of us who haven't seen it?
It's right at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's right at the bottom. As a
And you-
matter of fact, if you printed this, it would
Yes.
print at the bottom. I mean, you would have the number, and you see, you've got a number up here. So your numbers would be in the body of the report. But
Very bottom.
But at the very
whole
bottom
thing.
of the report is where you're actually going to see
So if you have
the
a
corresponding.
Do you keep all those?
It'll be up.
Correct.
Do you keep all those copies, or do you delete them once a year or once a quarter?
I back them up. I back them up because quite often I'm communicating something. Now, I do know federal tax work, so I want to make sure that if I get the tax accountant that calls me and says, you know, this doesn't make any sense, they told me that you suggested this, I go back to these documents and say, here's the report. Here's what my recommendation was. So
So you do.
I most definitely do, but that's
No,
that's
okay.
me. That's CYA. Any other questions? Okay. You're up.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys just 5 minutes while we swap out the computers. We're gonna have lunch in probably about 12:15. I'm gonna do a 20-minute presentation on ratios. So it's not terribly long, but it's gonna get us started. And if you have not picked up your Finagraph mug, you'll wanna get your beautiful Finagraph mug, and then, oops, all the goodies out of it. There's an egg in your mug with a definition or a word that needs to be defined. And you need to find the other half of your either definition or word that